The morning sun painted the streets of Istanbul in warm shades of gold as Barış stepped out of a quiet bookstore with a novel tucked under his arm. The city was waking slowly, cafes were filling with the aroma of fresh coffee, and the Bosphorus shimmered under the gentle breeze. It felt like an ordinary day, yet something in the air suggested that life was preparing an unexpected surprise. Barış had spent the last few months focusing on work, traveling between film sets, reading scripts, and searching for stories that inspired him. Although everything seemed to be going well, he often felt that something important was missing. It wasn't success or recognition. It was the feeling of sharing unforgettable moments with someone who truly understood the beauty of simple conversations. As he crossed the narrow street toward a nearby cafe, he noticed a familiar figure standing beside a flower shop. She was carefully choosing a bouquet of white lilies, smiling warmly as she thanked the florist. It was Elçin. She turned around at almost the same moment and caught sight of him. For a second, the busy street seemed unusually quiet. "Barış," she said with a surprised smile. "Elçin. What a coincidence." Neither of them expected to meet that morning, yet the unexpected encounter instantly felt comfortable. They greeted each other with genuine warmth before deciding to enjoy coffee together. Inside the small cafe overlooking the water, sunlight streamed through the large windows. They talked about books, films, travel, and the little adventures life often hides inside ordinary days. "I've started collecting old novels," Elçin admitted with a laugh. Barış smiled. "I knew you'd eventually become a book collector." "And how did you know that?" "You always appreciate stories that stay with people." She laughed softly. "You remember that?" "I remember more than you think." Their conversation flowed naturally, making the hours disappear almost unnoticed. Outside, rain suddenly began falling across the city. Instead of rushing home, they watched the rain from the cafe window. "It's beautiful," Elçin whispered. "The rain?" "No, this moment." Barış looked outside before smiling quietly. "I agree." Neither of them realized how meaningful such a simple afternoon would become. Several days later, Barış received an invitation to attend a charity art exhibition supporting young artists. As he entered the gallery, colorful paintings filled every wall. To his surprise, Elçin was already there. "You again," she joked. "I'm beginning to think Istanbul wants us to keep meeting. Maybe the city enjoys writing its own stories." They spent the evening exploring every painting together, discussing the emotions hidden behind each piece. One canvas showed two travelers walking toward the horizon beneath a brilliant sunset. "What do you think they're searching for?" Elçin asked. Barış studied the painting. "Not a destination." "What then?" "Someone willing to walk beside them." She looked at him for a brief second before returning her attention to the artwork. "I like that answer." As summer continued, their unexpected meetings became less accidental. Sometimes they visited quiet bookstores. Sometimes they explored local markets. Other afternoons were spent walking beside the Bosphorus while talking about dreams they had never shared with anyone else. One evening they discovered a tiny cafe hidden inside an old neighborhood. There were no crowds. No photographers. Only soft music, warm lights, and homemade desserts. The owner recognized neither of them. Instead, he simply welcomed them with kindness. "Please choose any table you'd like." Elçin smiled. "It's nice being somewhere peaceful." Barış nodded. Sometimes ordinary places create extraordinary memories. The cafe owner eventually brought them complimentary slices of homemade cake. "For good company," he said. They thanked him together. As the evening slowly turned into night, laughter replaced silence. Stories replaced small talk. Comfort replaced hesitation. For the first time in a long while, Barış realized he wasn't checking the time. He didn't want the evening to end. Weeks passed. One Saturday morning, Elçin invited Barış to visit a small coastal village outside Istanbul where an annual cultural festival was taking place. The streets were decorated with colorful banners. Children played traditional games. Musicians performed cheerful melodies. Local artists displayed handmade crafts. The entire village seemed filled with happiness. Together they explored every corner. They tasted fresh pastries. They admired paintings. They watched dancers perform under the bright afternoon sky. Near sunset, they found themselves standing beside the sea. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. The sky glowed with brilliant shades of orange and pink. "This place feels timeless," Elçin said. "It reminds us that happiness doesn't always arrive with grand events," Barış replied. "Sometimes it's hidden inside small moments." She smiled. "Exactly." For several quiet minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence felt complete. Not awkward. Not empty. Simply peaceful. On their way back to Istanbul, the road passed through rolling green hills. Music played softly inside the car. Elçin looked out the window. "Do you ever think life gives second chances?" Barış considered the question carefully. "I think life gives new opportunities." "What's the difference?" "A second chance asks us to repeat the past." "And a new opportunity?" "It invites us to become better than before." She smiled thoughtfully. "I like that." As the city lights appeared on the horizon, Barış realized something surprising. Every meeting with Elçin had brought unexpected joy into ordinary days. Without planning it. Without rushing it. Without even noticing when it happened. He found himself looking forward to every conversation, every shared laugh, every quiet walk, and every simple adventure. Standing beside the Bosphorus later that evening, he watched the reflections dancing across the water. A gentle breeze carried the sound of distant boats. He smiled to himself. Sometimes the most beautiful stories don't begin with dramatic moments. Sometimes they begin with a chance meeting, a shared cup of coffee, and two people discovering that life's greatest surprises often arrive when they least expect them. And as the stars slowly appeared above Istanbul, Barış quietly realized one simple truth. His heart was beginning to fall for Elçin all over again. The following weekend arrived with clear blue skies and a gentle breeze drifting across Istanbul. Barış woke earlier than usual, feeling an unfamiliar sense of excitement. His phone rested on the table beside his coffee, and just as he reached for it, a message appeared. "Elçin, there's a photography exhibition this afternoon. I thought you might enjoy it." A smile crossed his face before he even realized it. "Barış, I'd love to. See you there." Later that day, they met outside the gallery. The building was quiet, filled with soft light and walls covered in photographs from around the world. Some captured snowy mountains, others peaceful villages, busy city streets, and endless oceans. They wandered through the exhibition at an unhurried pace, stopping whenever a photograph caught their attention. One picture showed an elderly couple sitting on a park bench, sharing a single umbrella during a rainy afternoon. Elçin studied it for a moment. "They don't seem to be saying anything." Barış nodded. "Sometimes silence says more than words." She looked at him with a gentle smile. "I think you're right." As they continued exploring, they found a wall where visitors could leave handwritten notes about what inspired them most. Elçin picked up a card and wrote quietly. Barış waited patiently before writing his own message. When they finished, neither of them asked what the other had written. Somehow, they both understood that some thoughts were more meaningful when left private. Outside the gallery, the afternoon sun was beginning to soften. "Would you like to walk?" Barış asked. "I was hoping you'd ask." They followed the waterfront, watching ferries glide across the Bosphorus while seagulls circled overhead. Street musicians played cheerful melodies, and families filled the nearby parks with laughter. "I've always loved this part of the city," Elçin said. "It reminds me that no matter how busy life becomes, there is always a place where everything feels calm." Barış agreed. "I think everyone needs a place like that." As they continued walking, they came across a small outdoor market where local artists displayed handmade crafts, paintings, and pottery. One elderly artist invited them to look at his watercolor paintings. "This one is my favorite," he said, pointing to a painting of two people watching the sunset beside the sea. "It reminds me that the best journeys are shared." Barış and Elçin exchanged a brief smile. "It's beautiful," Elçin replied. The artist carefully wrapped the painting after Barış purchased it. "I'll find the perfect place for it," he said. "I'm sure you will," the artist answered warmly. That evening, they stopped at a quiet cafe they had never visited before. The owner welcomed every guest with the same cheerful smile, and fresh pastries filled the room with a comforting aroma. They ordered tea and sat near the window. "So," Elçin asked, "if you could spend one perfect day anywhere, where would it be?" Barış thought for a moment. "Somewhere peaceful. Maybe a small seaside town where nobody is in a hurry." She laughed softly. "That sounds exactly like something you'd choose. What about you?" "I think I'd choose a place filled with books, flowers, and music." He smiled. "I had a feeling you'd say that." Their conversation drifted from favorite childhood memories to dreams they still hoped to achieve. Neither noticed how quickly the hours passed. When they finally stepped outside, evening lights reflected across the water. The city felt peaceful. "I haven't laughed this much in a long time," Elçin admitted. "Neither have I." The following week brought busy schedules once again. Barış spent several days working on a film set, while Elçin attended meetings and creative projects of her own. Despite the distance, they continued exchanging messages. Sometimes they shared photographs of sunsets. Sometimes recommendations for books. Sometimes nothing more than a simple "have a wonderful day." Those small conversations somehow became the brightest part of each day. One afternoon, Barış received an unexpected invitation from Elçin. "There is a community garden opening this weekend. Volunteers have been planting flowers for months. Would you like to visit?" "I wouldn't miss it." Saturday arrived with perfect weather. The garden was filled with colorful roses, lavender, daisies, and blooming trees. Children painted flower pots while musicians played gentle acoustic songs nearby. Volunteers welcomed every visitor with kindness. Barış and Elçin spent the afternoon helping plant new flowers alongside local families. Neither cared about being recognized. For a few hours, they simply enjoyed being part of something meaningful. As the afternoon ended, one little girl approached them carrying two small sunflower plants. "These are for you." Barış smiled. "Thank you." The little girl looked at both of them. "My grandmother says sunflowers always turn toward the light." Elçin knelt beside her. "That's a beautiful thought." The child nodded happily before running back to her family. Barış looked at the tiny sunflower in his hands. "Maybe that's what people should do too. Always look toward the light?" He nodded. "I think life becomes brighter that way." They left the garden carrying their flowers carefully. The walk back was quiet but comfortable. Neither felt the need to fill every moment with conversation. Sometimes companionship was enough. As they reached a bridge overlooking the Bosphorus, they paused to admire the sunset. Golden reflections stretched across the water. The evening breeze carried the distant sound of fairy horns. "It feels different now," Elçin said softly. "What does?" "These moments." Barış turned toward her. "In what way?" "They're becoming memories before they even end." He smiled. "I've been thinking the same thing. For a while, they simply watched the horizon together. There were no dramatic speeches. No grand promises. Only two people appreciating the quiet beauty of an ordinary evening. As the first stars appeared above Istanbul, Barış realized that happiness had never arrived all at once. Instead, it had grown little by little through shared conversations, unexpected invitations, peaceful walks, and simple moments that neither of them wanted to forget. Standing beside